We are broadcasting live.
Good evening, everyone. This is the meeting of the Council of the Town of Mono, held on Tuesday, March the 26th, 2024, at 7 p.m. This meeting is being conducted both in chambers and by means of electronic participation, as permitted in Section 238, subsection 3.1 of the Municipal Act 2001, as amended, and the town's procedural bylaw 2020-42. This meeting can be viewed contemporaneously or at a later date on our website. We have quorum, I see. Location of the emergency exits for everybody's benefit is behind the council chamber. Members are free to disclose pecuniary interest at this point in the meeting or at any point in the meeting, followed up in writing with the clerk. And I'm going to call on Councillor Mangtalo to do the Indigenous land acknowledgement.
We would like to begin by respectfully acknowledging the town of Mono resides within the traditional territory and ancestral lands of the Teonatatani, Atawanda, Run, Hodi, Noshoni, and Anishinaabe. We also acknowledge that the town of Mono resides within the treaty lands named under Treaty 18, the Nottawasaga Purchase of 1818. These traditional territories upon which we live and learn are steeped in rich Indigenous history and traditions, and it is with this statement that we declare to honor and respect the past and the present connection of Indigenous people with this land, its waterways, and resources.
Thank you. I have a motion that council approves the agenda of session 6, 2024 is circulated. Do I have a mover? Councillor Cape, seconded by Deputy Mayor Nix. Any opposed? That motion is carried. I have a motion that council approves the minutes of session 5, 2024 is circulated. Councillor Mangtalo, Councillor Davies seconds. Any opposed? That motion carries. I have a declaration having to do with World Autism Day, whereas autism spectrum disorder, ASD, affects more than 135,000 Ontarians. Autism spectrum disorder is now recognized as the most common neurological disorder, affecting 1 in every 66 children, as well as their friends and family and community.
He says as soon as.
And whereas
we give him a few days notice.
Huh?
Yeah, thank you. And whereas ADS is a spectrum disorder, which means it is not only manifests itself differently in every individual in whom it appears, but also its characteristics will change over the life of each individual as well. A child with ASD will become an adult with ASD. And whereas Autism Ontario, formerly the Autism Society of Ontario, is the leading source of information and referral on autism and one of the largest collective voices representing the autism community. And since 1973, Autism Ontario has been providing support, information, and opportunities for thousands of families across the province. And whereas Autism Ontario is dedicated to increasing public awareness about autism and the day-to-day issues faced by individuals with autism, their families, and the professionals with whom they interact, the association and its chapters share a common goal of providing information, education, and supporting research and advocacy for programs and services for the autism community. And whereas World Autism Day is recognized on April the 2nd, 2024, on behalf of Council, I declare that April 2nd, 2024 as World Autism Day in the town of Mono, and that's signed by myself. Question period. Anything online, anything submitted?
We had one question submitted online in advance, Your Worship. It's from a member of the Dufferin Northern Peel Anglers and Hunters Association. And the question asks when staff will be bringing the report on the discharge of firearms bylaw.
And I will turn it over to staff to indicate a timeline.
Okay. So due to other more pressing council priorities, the report hasn't come in the original estimated time of first quarter of this year. And at this point, Your Worship, I am unable to give an exact time when I'll be bringing that forward.
And we, of course, will let them know when it is on our agenda, and they can either be a delegation or participate in that meeting. Questions in the gallery? Come on forward.
Elaine Kehoe, 388193 Mono Center Road. On March 12th, after approximately 30-minute discussion, Council moved 3-1 to amend Bylaw 2003-41.
Excuse me, Your Worship, on a point of order,
Yes.
I'm going to have to declare an indirect conflict of interest.
Right.
I'll fill the paperwork out.
Okay. Go
Wanna
ahead.
wait till he leaves?
No, go ahead.
Oh, which in effect waived the fee of 5% for land purchased under the bylaw by various conservation groups, including the Bruce Trail. In doing so, one councillor suggested that the amendment would result in a loss of revenue to the town of Mono of approximately $1 million. I started a petition yesterday which reads as follows. There is a question.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman and members of the Committee of Adjustment, the Bruce Trail Conservatory is an admirable organization. We have all at one time or another walked or hiked the trails. Council has requested that you amend or pass the Parkland Dedication Bylaw. In doing so, Committee of Adjustment must determine that waiving the Parkland dedication fee is in the best interest of the town and public interest. We, the citizens and taxpayer of Mono, have not been given sufficient time or information regarding the total anticipated loss of revenue to the town. Will it open the door for other conservatory groups to apply for the same relief? And what will happen to the balance of the land once severance is granted, fees are waived, can the land be sold to a developer? There are many more questions. There are too many questions, in fact, that we, the residents, must have answers to before the bylaw is amended or passed. This amendment will affect our future revenue and may affect our quiet enjoyment. Therefore, we respectfully ask that you postpone your decision until a public meeting can be held and the voices of the citizens of Mono be heard. My questions to Council are, will Council give direction to the Committee of Adjustments to hold off their decision on Thursday night this week till the public hearing is held? And secondly, will Council add this important issue to the agenda of the Town Hall meeting taking place on August 27th?
Okay, I will have a go.
April 27th.
I'll have a go at correcting the record and suggesting that the matter will probably be deferred from the the Committee of Adjustments meeting this Thursday. For one thing, we have passed the bylaw amendment, so it has been debated, it was voted on, it's been passed. It gives the Committee of Adjustment the authority to take representations with regard to waiving the fee in circumstances where the severance is creating public space, effectively creating parkland. So in creating a trail, which of course would be very expensive to do, the applicant is saying, I'm creating this open space, I'm creating this trail. The town of Mono could probably never afford to do it for the amount of money that they may forego. But going back to the Committee of Adjustment, it's their decision as to whether to waive all or part. So it's discretionary only. It is not mandatory. And I can think of only one other scenario where the request would even be made. Let's say a resident of Mono owned 200 acres, and they wanted to deed 100 acres to the town of Mono. and they wanted to sever the other 100 acres into two 50-acre parcels. Would we then turn around and basically double dip, as it were, by insisting on a parkland dedication fee when they in fact are donating land to the town for open space? That's the only other parallel I can think of. So this is not something that is going to happen with each and every severance that is considered. So to the question of whether it can be a topic for our town hall discussion, probably half of that meeting is open for anyone who attends to raise any subject they want, and I fully anticipate that this will come up. We don't need to even put it on the agenda. It will simply come up. And as for the Committee of Adjustment meeting on Thursday, I would be shocked if they were proceeding with a determination of the question of waiving some or all of the parkland dedication for the Bruce Trail.
Well,
What I understand, and I can be corrected, is that they are receiving the information and they are not making any decision on the letter from the Bruce Trail Conservancy.
I think, as I understand it, members of that committee are very uneasy about receiving it in such speed, without public input, without discussion, and they want to defer it. So I'm just predicting reliably, I think, that they will not make a decision on Thursday night. They'll simply receive the letter from the Bruce Trail, and they will debate it, discuss it at a later date when there's enough time for the public to consider attending and having input on the issue.
Thank you, Mayor. To clarify, the amendment that was made to the bylaw gave examples, and it didn't give an example of a property owner as you did. It gave actual named companies, including the Bruce Trail, and a couple of others in your bylaw.
The reason for
bylaw.
that is the bylaw is now mirroring exactly the wording of our official plan. And it was thought important that if our official plan recognizes the existence of the Bruce Trail, which it does, it even includes a map, and if it recognizes other organizations that may or may not be eligible. And I frankly think that some of the organizations named, although they are in our official plan, probably are not eligible for the same treatment that the Bruce Trail may be, or that hypothetical landowner.
well, I would like to give you some examples that are,
This is question period.
yes,
I'm
I
sure that
realize it's
there are
question
many-
period, but you have made a statement, and I would like to make one final
Okay.
comment. The Bruce Trail Association has purchased 3 properties, all of which would fall under the bylaw. They purchased the Goodyear Scout Camp for $3,665,000, which is 238 acres, 0.59. I don't think that's going to be parkland. They purchased 123 acres for $2,750,000 on the third line. I don't think that's all going to be
I was
parkland.
careful to say public space. And a trail is public space, open to anyone
That's going to be an
walk.
awful big public space, and I would hesitate. And I would also like you to add it to the agenda, because that way I will have time to gather up the petitions and have speakers there.
Well, it is effectively on the agenda because we have an open agenda for one half of that meeting. And to the statement that somehow or another this land could magically become a subdivision, I think it highly unlikely. And if it were to become a subdivision, as I said in the public debate on this, the fastest way to collect a ton of parkland dedication money is to approve subdivisions. That's the fastest way to build up the treasury insofar as parkland monies are concerned. Finally, I just point out that it's fine to have a parkland dedication reserve, but those monies can only be spent on very limited things having to do with growth.
I'm well aware of that.
Okay. Any other questions? Don't be shy. Is there anyone online who has a question? Okay, seeing none. We are within 1 minute of our delegation time of 7:15, and I'd like to invite our applicants to join us at the table here. And in a moment, I'll have you introduce yourselves, and in the meantime, I'm just going to defer to our CAO to introduce staff, our consultant, and then they will make some brief remarks, as they did in the public meeting of the Planning Committee, and then I'll turn it over to you to make your submissions. Then I'll open it up to the audience to ask questions, make comments, and once that is done, and once we've had it back and forth, I'll adjourn the statutory public meeting, and then council will have some things to say, no doubt. So, Mr. Clerk, would you like me to adjourn the meeting and put it into the statutory public meeting? Yes, let's see if we can get Mr. Nix back. Thank you. Let's Gremlins tonight. So I have a motion that we adjourn the regular meeting of council and go into a public meeting to discuss zoning bylaw amendment, ZBA 2023-02, and draft plan of subdivision, SUB 2023-01. Do I have a mover? Councillor Mangtalo, seconded by Deputy Mayor Nix. Any objection? Seeing none, we are now in our statutory public meeting. Mr. Dunmore?
Thanks, Your Worship. I just wanted to go through a little bit of the process that will happen tonight. The applicant will have an opportunity to present to council and to the public. It's at that time that council will ask the public if they have any concerns or comments. We'd like the applicant to be able to get through and give their presentation. The town has representation from the Director of Planning, David Trotman, Nick McDonald, Meridian Planning, and Gord Feniak from RJ Burnside. Council can, after the public has their chance to speak to the application, would have their opportunity to speak, and at that time we'll close the meeting. All through this process, the town will be collecting the information that's being provided, as I'm sure you will be as well. And at that time, we can choose whether you want to respond tonight or whether it's an opportunity in the future.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Mr. Dunmore, who would you like to recognize to tee this up?
So with no further ado, I'd like the applicant to please introduce themselves, and the presentation is yours.
Okay. Good evening.
Good evening, Your Worship. Hope everyone can hear me okay.
Yes.
Good evening, members of council, town personnel, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Maurizio Rogato. I am the principal planner at Blackthorn Development Corporation, and I'm grateful for you to have our attendance this evening. I'm joined this evening by Mr. Paul Lowes, principal at SGL Planning and Design. We've prepared a brief presentation which Paul will walk you through. And then, of course, we remain ready to answer any questions or points of clarification members of council or the public may have. Thank you.
Yeah. If we get the presentation up and if we could, there we go. That's great. So good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council and the public. So I'm just going to be a very brief presentation on the application. If we can go to the next, I guess I can, there we go. So I'm just going to quickly go through the site location, the surroundings, talk a little bit about the land use designations, both at the county and the township level. Talk about the proposal, quickly through the zoning bylaw, and then finish up before the questions from the public and comments from the public. So we see the location on the screen of the site. It's bound by the second line to the east We see Highway 9 to the south and the commercial industrial area just to the south of it on Coles Crescent, and bound by natural areas to the north, and you'll see the residential area to the west. So a little bit more, we just identified some of the existing land uses. Of course, we've got the Dufferin Glen Golf Course to the east, to the right. To the north is rural area, but a fair amount of significant environmental features that bound the site to the north. To the west, we have a residential development it's an old air photo that's fully developed now, and to the south is a mix of existing light industrial, storage areas and industries, car dealerships, all to the south on French Drive and on Coles Crescent. So in the Dufferin County official plan, the site is designated as a community settlement area. It's within the Greenbelt plan area, but identified as a settlement within the Greenbelt plan area. And we see just on the north side of the subject site is identified in red that there is a provincially significant wetland on the site. In the Town of Mono official plan, it's identified as a Greenbelt Hamlet area, and in the Greenbelt Hamlet area, both residential uses are permitted and commercial and industrial uses are permitted, subject to a special provision, and a special provision applies to the subject site. And that permits residential uses north of Highway 9, as well as commercial light industrial uses may be permitted specifically on the east half of Lot 2, Concession 2. And it says may be permitted, and there's policies with regard to that. We also see in the town's official plan that the part of the site is a natural heritage designation with environmental protection EP1. On the town zoning bylaw, the lands are zoned rural, as lands are normally zoned rural in a settlement area until they're developed. There is also the environmental protection EP zoning on the north side of the site. So quickly to the proposed subdivision, I'll start with where I ended on the OP and zoning is in the environmental protection areas, and you see that in the dark green. The north end of the site is a significant wetland. This draft plan of subdivision identifies that significant wetland and protects it with a 30-meter buffer as is required. Along the west side of the subject site is a top of bank, and there's a 10-meter setback to the top of bank. So we see that the environmental protection, environmental areas to the north and along the west side. We also have in the subdivision, there's 349 residential lots, and they're a mix of one block of townhouses in the kind of dark brown at the south end of the plan, as well as a range of different other lot sizes up to 15.24 or 50-foot lots. So there's a mix of trying to create a mix of housing types within this proposed subdivision. In the center of the plan is a park for the residents. It will be a neighborhood park, 1.4 hectares, which is very close to the parkland dedication requirement. And we also have then a wastewater treatment plant on the south side, abutting to the industries on Coles Crescent. We have a buffer along the south side. You can probably use there was a cursor. Sorry, this is, I should have used that before. There's a sewage treatment plant along the buffer with the rest of the Coles Crescent industrial uses as a buffer in this block. This is the main entrance, Street A. Here's the townhouse component. The rest is all single detached homes with the park block in the center. We also have two water supply blocks along here, along the second line. And the stormwater management block is up adjacent to the natural heritage system. We also have walkway blocks to get into the natural heritage system, so we can have walkways along the buffer blocks to the natural heritage system. As I said about the natural heritage, this shows the natural heritage features and the associated buffers in the pink. And there's additional lands to the north that would be restoration areas that wouldn't be developed in this area along in here. that would be restoration areas to expand on the natural heritage features. The zoning bylaw, I won't go into the specific details, but there's a number of different residential zones that are being created for the different lot frontages and lot sizes. As I said, it's a mix of lot sizes in the community, so that provides the different lot sizes through the different zoning. We have 3 open space blocks specifically to identify the OSXXA for the water treatment plant, then one for the sewage treatment plant, one from the stormwater management facility, each specifically setting out the zoning for each of those and the permissions. The environmental is all in an EP zone, and the park block and other walkway blocks are in the open space zone. We have also added a definition of townhouse dwelling, because there's no definition of townhouse dwelling in your zoning bylaw, and different provisions for each of those zones. So just to close, we've reviewed all the comments from the various town departments and external agencies. We recognize there's a number of issues with the plan that still have to be worked out. There's considerations of land use compatibility, site servicing, wastewater treatment, the water treatment, how the water is to be supplied. There's concerns of some traffic issues that will have to be addressed. And there's the issue of employment lands. We understand the county and the town's preference for employment lands. We will be reviewing all of those comments. We will be considering them and considering them in detail, including the desire for employment lands, and we'll be re-looking at this plan and considering that. We will be preparing a second submission to try and address all of the comments that we received. So we would request that council receive the presentation tonight, receive the staff report, receive the information, and send it back to the planning department for consideration, and give us some opportunity to come in with a second submission to try and address those concerns. We'd like to work with your staff to try and see how we can address all these concerns to come up with a plan that the town is happy with. So that's completion of my submission. Look forward to any of the comments from the public and council. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship, for hearing us out. And as Paul mentioned, our request is to allow the planning process to continue. We're still, I believe, waiting maybe on some minor comments to be coming in, but once all comments have been received, our intent is to carefully consider the comments and comments from the public that we may be receiving this evening and received at the Planning Committee when I was here, and then advance our second submission. So thank you very much.
Before I turn it over to the public, I'm going to call on our planner and consultants to make remarks. Or raise issues.
All right, thank you, Mayor Creelman. Firstly, to Mr. Regato's point, we are waiting for some remaining comments. Excuse me. They're largely provincial comments from the ministries. I don't know that we'll get them, but we did seek out our request for comments from them, including MTO. We do have updated comments that went to council from MTO. They've made a position on how they would provide more material, in-depth comments going forward. And council has those comments. I have not received any of the other ministries at this point. And the only other one that we haven't gotten are some of the First Nations and the Health Board. But again, they may weigh in at a later time, with respect to an application for a draft plan that's approved, and then provide technical comments at that point if that were to occur. That's all I have to say about that. Thanks.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. I don't really have any comments to add to the proceedings this evening. I did prepare a fairly comprehensive report that went to the Planning Committee meeting on March 14th. I did give a presentation that evening. My report identifies a number of land use planning considerations and servicing considerations identified by Burnside that we reviewed quite extensively at that meeting. Certainly the applicant is very well aware of the comments that we've made, and as indicated this evening, we'll be responding to those comments in full at the appropriate time. And when that happens, we'll be ready to review them and prepare another report if required for council's consideration.
Thank you. Mr. Feniak?
And I'm Gord Feniak from Burnsides. I have very little to add. This is the applicant's meeting. We're here more or less to answer questions. If there are any, I would just say that I'm happy to hear that the applicant would like to deeply consider our comments, because that's encouraging to hear.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Members of the public, if you could come forward and state your name and where you live. And
Speak.
one at a time.
What did you just do?
I just had to turn on my mic.
Push the button.
Good evening. My name is Peter Solti, S-O-L-T-I. I live on the second line, just up the road from this proposed development. I've been a resident of this neighborhood for 11 years. I moved to Mono because it was a dream of mine to live in the country, and it has given me that lifestyle that I wanted. And I'm here to, I guess, say that while I realize that this development is close to Highway 9 and that it is close to, as the presenter said, or the developer said, you know, it's close to the industrial area, which makes it sound as though it's kind of, you're already there. But I guess from my point of view, the development is being proposed on a rural property that was a 100-acre parcel, I think, as you guys know, and it just feels like if this one gets approved, then the developer who owns the land behind me and the developer that owns the land directly to the south, it's now, I'll be here in another 10 years and it'll be, well, there's already this development, and so it just keeps going. And I own a small property. It's a heritage property. It's got an old farmhouse, Victorian farmhouse, a 200-acre, what used to be a 200-acre property, one of the originals. And I just see that this creep is going to keep going, you know? So I feel like I wanted to present my perspective on it. And I'm sure all of us on the second line, we all probably chose to live in the country for that reason, to enjoy that lifestyle. I didn't choose to live in a subdivision, and so I'd like to maintain that. Basically, that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Solti.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Come on forward.
Can everyone hear me? Yes. Good. My name's John Voigt, and I have a business in the Mono Industrial Park on Coles Crescent. And I also own the building we're in, and we saw a lot of the information that the applicant has put forward, and it's quite impressive. But myself, along with some of the other business owners and some of the other property owners in the neighborhood, most of them, there's a couple I haven't been able to get a hold of, have reviewed it, and we are in opposition to it. And we sent a letter to Mr. Trotman. Do you have that letter?
Yes.
Good, so there's no need for me to read it in detail. But, or I can if that's necessary.
No, we
You've got
have
it,
as
okay,
part of the
good.
overall
For
package.
the want of time, we decided that there's some other folks here that are attending, but for those that couldn't attend, I'm speaking on their behalf. And it's pretty much everybody in the neighborhood is in opposition to it for a variety of reasons that we've noted in the letter. And based on our experiences with having residential properties near industrial areas, it's problematic, and eventually it becomes a pain and grief for the people that buy the houses and for the people that work in the industrial area, but probably mostly for you as town council and the good folks sitting over here on my right that have to deal with the complaints. The actual presentation, the folks that just spoke, put on, it looks great, but we just feel it's in the wrong place. And the noise and the odors and the proximity, the width of roads, a variety of topics we feel are not conducive to having 350 dwellings there. And I did have one question, and it may have been spoken about, and I haven't seen all the reports, but is there room in the school for another, say, if there's 350 homes, average of one child or one school-age child per home, is there room for 350 more students in the school? So where will they go to school? I guess that's maybe.
I'll defer to Mr. Trotman on this, but there is material in the package with regard to capacity. And normally you see a sign put up saying, you know, buyer beware, there is no room in the inn for your kids. But Mr. Trotman, can you just quickly review?
We did get comments from the Upper Grant School Board, and they alluded to the requirement for capacity expansion. I mean, as we probably all know, school boards in the short term defer to portables on site where they can, then ultimately look at capital plans for additional schools when they get the money from the province. So those are appended, I think, as the first appendix, or second appendix, excuse me, on the list of appendix from comments, the agency comments that we received through our circulation of these two applications.
Okay, well, I might be speaking a little out of my lane with regards to the school. I was really here more with regards to promoting it being maintained as rural until such time as it could be developed, as someone chooses to develop it into light industrial, so that we have more jobs in Mono, and people don't have to drive down Highway 10 and 410 to the city, back and forth an hour plus each way, and they can work close to where they live. I've moved here from Toronto, and I live in Mono at First Line, and for the specific reason of being able to work close to home, and it's really, really a lot nicer. Now folks can choose to live and work wherever they wish. I'm just saying for the promotion of having people live close to where they work, I think it'd be better to leave it as the potential for future employment zoning. And that's really all I have to say at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Boyd.
All right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I've driven down the road, and so I know that there's light industrial, and I've seen that there's the lovely farm fields that I wish would stay, but I appreciate that, you know, life marches on. But the comments that you're saying about that if you had 350 homes there, that would be cars coming and going, and there would be a rub up with your industrial neighborhood, right? That's what you're saying.
That's one of them, yes.
But if it all of a sudden the new proposal is the entire thing becomes employment opportunities, there still would be more traffic than you're ever seeing now when you live beside or when you work beside this open space, right?
Well, I guess it depends if there was access to First Line from the proposed area, and then, of course, the cut, second line, and then the cut beside CarStar and Total Mechanical. There would be more vehicle traffic, but not like, you know, if you think most houses are going to have 2 cars, so there's 700 cars in 350 homes, hypothetically. I'm not sure where you were going with the question.
Well, that's it. I don't know. That's why I was asking you, as being a building owner in the area, when you say, you know, it would be nice to have leave it for future development. Would the future that you're thinking of be more buildings like yours? In which case, how many cars do you have? And so, but not the 300, not 700.
Correct.
Okay.
In my opinion, there would be fewer, just consistent with what the Mono Industrial Park was developed. The lots are in the 1 1/3 to, say, 3 acre size. So if the lots were industrial up there in the, say, 1.5 to 5 acre, you're right, there would be more cars. But I don't think as many as in in a residential area. And the traffic is one item that's an issue. the other items all compound together in our collective opinions that feel that it's the wrong place.
Thank you for that clarification.
Okay,
Anything else? Thank you very much.
all right, thank you. Turn this off?
You can leave it on.
All right.
Welcome.
Hi, it's Emilio Sestra. I live at 46 Benson Avenue. I was here about a couple of months ago when I mentioned about the traffic on Second Line, if this development goes through, that we talked about lights. Like, I don't know how many years it took to put lights on First Line. Are we going to have the same situation that they start building and the lights are not in? Because presently, right now, on French Drive, because of people accessing French Drive, we had to put in speed bumps in order to slow the traffic down. So that is a major concern regarding the traffic to what this development is going to do. The second item is the sewage treatment plant. As you know, at French Drive and Benson, we've had a lot of problems with this treatment plant. And the odors coming from this place is unbelievable. Now, we have bylaws pertaining to particles in the air for dust. But do we have a bylaw for odor? Who's responsible for that?
We could ask the clerk to write one.
That would be good.
That's an inside joke, folks.
I mean, I don't know if there's anybody else from Benson or in the Fieldstone development here tonight. Probably not. Anyways, that's my two concerns. And then the thing is the infrastructure, we have one water tower now, right? They're saying that there's going to be some infrastructure for the new development. But are we going to have enough water for both, like, 700 homes? Are we going to run into a problem where the aquifers are going to dry up, kind of thing? Does anyone know that? Has anyone untested the aquifer to see how much water there is?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll look over at Gord when I give an answer, but I was around when we did the source water protection plans about 12, 15 years ago. And that aquifer that provides water for our Coles and Island Lake wells, at least for the existing homes, has plenty of water. There was no water quantity threat there. We had problems in other parts of the municipality, but on those aquifers, there did seem to be lots of water. Gord, if you want to correct me, you can, but that's my memory of the source water protection aquifers.
I would just answer that by saying that we have an application that's in front of us that we're commenting on. And the application is to drill some wells and test them, and it presumes that they will meet the tests. And our response has been that we wouldn't recommend approvals be given until those tests are done, but even more so, there's a requirement to do a Class EA because the application is to develop a new water system that's not connected to the existing Mono water system. And that may end up being a conclusion. It may end up that a Class EA may go down a different road and find a different conclusion, but in order to approve the application that's in front of council, the response is that a Class EA is required.
Now, the treatment plant that we have on French Drive, is it comparable size to this new development? Because the one on French Drive isn't sufficient to do what it's supposed to be doing, because originally they estimated 3.5 people would be living in houses in this development in Fieldstone. Well, that isn't the case. There's no way. There's generational families in the subdivision. In some homes, you have like 14 people, 20 people living in there. So that's another item that, because in this new development, I think they're saying there's 3.5 people to these homes? I don't know, from what I read. So can this new sewage treatment plant handle the same thing, or does it need to be bigger than what is on French Drive?
Gord?
Just with respect to the existing system, I know that it was designed for 1 cubic meter per house per day for 350 houses. So it was designed for 350 cubic meters per day on an average flow. And the most recent reports show that it's a reasonable buffer below that. It's not beyond that number, it's not approaching that number, it's a safe distance from that number. So that, I would just add that kind of as a comment on the existing plant.
Okay, that's all.
Thank you very much. Any further comments? Anyone online wants to make a comment or ask a question? Welcome.
Hi, thank you. I'm happy to wait if
Okay.
there's someone online.
Online?
Oh, hi.
Hi.
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
My name is Val Hoagie. I live on First Line. I'm actually the one who rescued those two beautiful horses that were in the pictures of that presentation. I spent a fair bit of time on that property trying to get those horses to my property. Quite honestly, it's a beautiful piece of property. I think we have to consider the environmental impact. I've walked a lot on that property. There is a small gravel pit, if I recall, on one end of it. And in the plenty of bobolinks, lots of sparrows. It's just a beautiful place. The water for those horses and for that house were not drinkable. It was poor flow, poor water conditions. So I think that is something that hopefully you have to consider. And then as well as I saw some of the comments and some of the notes that had come through, I too have a very big concern around infrastructure. I find that our town is getting very, very crowded. Stores, hospitals, having to use it and not have a bed and stuff like that, it gets very concerning. And I know that's more of a provincial thing versus a local. However, as we build the populations around us, it does have an impact. I drive an hour to see a doctor because that's where I could get one. And I just think that as we're looking at 349 residential properties with multi-generations, with large size families, I think that those are things that we need to consider. I too moved here to be in the country and enjoy the beautiful rural properties and the environment that we live in. And as we bring people to Mono and we don't have places for them to work, they're creating, additional carbon. We should be thinking about our carbon footprint as we do this as well. We talk about a lot of things in government, and I just think that there needs to be a lot more consideration as we look at 349 properties going into that, what I think was a very small farm. So I know a lot of those comments have already been made, but I just think there's a lot of consideration that we have to take as we look at shifting and looking at, 349 homes is not something small.
Thank you.
Hi. My name's Sarah Mayotte, and I live on the second line. I've actually lived there for more than 45 years. It's pretty much my first home, and we have a property with a few generations, and I'm raising my children, and this evening is a great educational experience to see how council works and how you get to have input locally. So thank you. I appreciate, and unlike a few people who've asked questions and given concern, there's already been development on the second line. From my perspective, it's a paved road. It used to be gravel. There's light industrial. And so change is inevitable. And I come to you with sort of an appreciation that there is going to be development and things don't stay the same. But I would want to know that we did all the due diligence and we're doing this the best way we can. And we're not doing this quickly, and we're doing this to the way Val said, just with a lot of consideration, because obviously there's so many factors to our community, and we love Mono. So one of the questions I had, and I'm new to the process, but I understood from the presenters that there was an amendment to the zoning bylaws. And is that a proposed amendment, or was that amendment made? And can I get a copy of it just to see it?
Dave?
Through the mayor to you, I suspect what Mr. Lowe's was referring to was the proposed amendment to the zoning bylaw that, if it were approved, would implement the plan of subdivision in those 349 lots of various frontage size and type. That's, I think, what the reference was to.
And in that amendment, there was something about townhouse dwelling definition. True. And so I just wonder, can we hear a definition? Or is that, and is this preliminary? I'm, and again, new to the process, but I just feel like there are a lot of details I'm left wondering about.
I'm going to give our delegates a chance to respond at the end of the public
Sure.
submissions, and maybe they could address that at that time.
Yeah, because, I mean, I want affordable housing for our community, but I also don't want to think a townhouse is redefined to be some very tiny, skinny home. And there's a section for townhomes. And so I'd like more detail, I suppose, and I'm curious to know about the proposed amendment. I'm sympathetic to the gentleman that spoke about the light industrial area, and knowing it's more than just traffic, and traffic certainly impacts me. I don't let my kids bike on the second line anymore. People go very fast. We have all the car dealerships. People are test driving their cars. It's not friendly anymore to kids being, or even riding their bikes to the neighbors. We don't do that. But there's things like I would imagine from the industrial subdivision, there's noise, there's dust, there's a lot of factors, and I'm sympathetic to trouble they could have with a subdivision put right beside them. I'm also very partial to the Credit Valley tributaries that come through, because it comes through our property, and we spend a lot of time on Mono cleanup day picking up all the garbage. And with the increased traffic already, that's it's changed our neighborhood for sure. So what's dumped in the ditches is significant. And anyways, those are all concerns. The waterway is very dear to me. Water matters, as we all know. I'm concerned even about walkways to natural heritage systems. We want people to appreciate the beauty of the land, but the more you let people in on those spaces, they leave their footprint with garbage and junk and glass and various things. So I have hesitations about, is that a good idea? I'm not sure. Anyways, I'm also very sad, just the loss of farmland, and the Hand property has always been a beautiful farm, and we will miss it for sure. But I just urge you to use caution, and lots of neighbors have lots of things to say about it. So if you're looking for more input, I'm sure you will gladly get it. But thank you for this evening.
Thank you very much. Any further comments?
Yeah, it's John Shippers on French Drive.
Yes.
Yeah, we've got, because obviously what Val was concerned about is the hospital. I'm a frequent visitor there myself. So I have concerns as to waiting lines that are going to happen because of this. The truck traffic that we have on our French Drive has been several times that the subdivisions on French Drive have turned around and gone over top of our property because we're backing up a truck, gone straight across our property, straight across our septic system, and out the other driveway. We've also had increased problems with car problems and theft that happened. We lost a lot of skids and garbage being thrown into our dumpsters. So we ended up putting a $20,000 fence up around the property. Yeah, I think at one point that we were putting on our second edition, it was concerned, Mona Township had concerns about the truck traffic, that it held up my building proposal, if I'm correct, because they didn't want to see an increase of trucks going down down French Drive. So again, traffic is going to be a concern for us, and we've been in the area for 35 years. We've lived on the second line. We also right now live on the third line. It is going to be a concern. Is it going to increase traffic on the third line for people driving around? It's about all I really have on it, but I'd rather not see a subdivision there. I'd rather like to see it left as farmland. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Shippers. Anyone else? Anyone else online?
Yes, I'd like to make a comment.
Yes, if you could just give us your name, sir.
My name is Winston Jagishar. I'm the owner for Dufferin Glen Golf Course. I spent thousands of dollars fighting the neighbors to keep the golf course 90 acres as a green space, which took over 6 years, and like I said, thousands of dollars to keep it as a green space. By the end of it, after I hired planners and lawyers, I end up keeping it as a green space so I can have a golf course on it. So it's still operating as Dufferin Glen Golf Club as of to date. So I'm in support of the subdivision across the road because it will help my business. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Jagassar.
Yes, sir.
Last call? Anyone online? Anyone?
Hello?
Yes,
Hello, hello?
yes.
Okay, all right. I'm Susan DeCoates. We live on Second Line.
Your name, please?
Susan DeCoates.
Thank you.
We've been on Second Line for 22 years. We moved here from rural Alberta. We had our well go dry in rural Alberta. And because of all the subdivisions going down the road from us, they taxed our well. We drilled 2 wells that were bone dry. And then finally we had a 3rd well and we actually had water. We moved here onto a dirt road. Yes, things change. Our road is now paved. I have horses that I brought from Alberta. I can't ride on my road anymore. I wouldn't even walk on my road anymore. The traffic is so bad. I'm worried about my well. Water in Ontario is different than water in Alberta, but developments do tax the aquifers. 350 homes, 349 homes with 2 cars per home is 700 more cars on our road. Our road was a very peaceful road, and now we have cars going up and down our road at warp speed. You cannot walk on our road anymore. I believe that if I would like to see what the first light industrial application for that land, for the Hands property is, I believe that a light industrial backed onto Coles and Crescent would tie in with the industrial. Why is it being changed to 349 homes? That's my big question. And if my well goes dry, what do I do? Thank you.
Thank you. Good questions. Anyone else? Last call with our gallery. Okay. Would you like to respond to some of the questions that have been asked?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I'm only going to speak to a couple matters because we are going to be doing a full submission, a resubmission to address all the technical aspects on the traffic that we hear about on this subjects, on the water issues. I would urge the folks to review the application information. There is the draft zoning bylaw that we prepared. It is available through the town. And it does explain the details of what's being proposed. In terms of that question that I'll deal with, what is the definition of townhouse? It's not that we're trying to create a new definition, it's just there's not a definition in the town's zoning bylaw right now, so we're just adding that definition. And if you could bring it more closer so I don't have to, the definition is, and it's a typical definition for a townhouse, means a building divided vertically or horizontally into 3 or more separate dwelling units, each of which has an independent entrance either directly or through a common vestibule. So that's a common definition of a townhouse that we've used from other municipalities. So we're just adding that to your zoning bylaw. But the main point I'd like to make, because I've heard a number of people talk about the rural character of the site, and it is a beautiful property, but it is in a settlement area. So the principle of development, of whether it will be developed for urban uses, that decision has already been made by this town. It's in a settlement area. It is no longer an area that's going to remain as rural. I think the question for this council is should it be a residential? Should it be employment? Should it be a mix of that? We had proposed residential. We're hearing loud and strong about the concern for residential. We will relook at that. We will look at the opportunity for employment on this site, and we'll address the concerns about septics, and we understand the issue with the septic system in the adjacent residential community. How can we do this better? We'll be looking at that. So we look for the opportunity to keep working with you and your staff to try and address these issues and determine what's the appropriate type of development, but an urban development within a settlement area is what we'll be looking at. So thank you for the opportunity this evening to present our applications and to continue working with you.
Thank you. Now, I will be guided by advice of the clerk or consultants as to whether we should rise from the public meeting and then allow members of council to comment and ask questions, or whether we should do that within the statutory public meeting.
So council can certainly debate if they wish in the public meeting, but of course, no decision can be made. So if the intent of the debate is to lead to a decision, council is advised to close the public meeting.
Okay. I'm in the hands of council on that.
I mean, I have some concerns to express. I could do it either publicly or
Either way, there is a record. It's recorded. So whether we do it within the confines of the statutory public meeting or we rise and then do it, that would give us an opportunity to sum up the evening with a motion to receive.
Well, let's just ask the clerk. I mean.
Sorry, I was just asking Deputy Mayor to put his microphone on. But I think unless you have any questions for the applicant, I think it would be advisable for you to close the public meeting and to debate and discuss.
Okay. So don't go anywhere. I'm going to read a motion that we close the public meeting and resume the regular meeting of council, and we'll continue with this topic as soon as we've done that. Do I have a mover to close the public meeting? Councillor Davey, seconded by Deputy Mayor Nix. Any opposed? And that motion is carried. And I'll open it up to members of council to ask questions or raise issues. Councillor Davey.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Thank you very much for your presentation and for the your demeanor of wanting to work with us. This is we don't have a whole lot of development in Mono, but you're a different fish than the last one. So that's very nice. In which case, I kind of think I've read the materials, lots of materials. Like if our resident there didn't get it, it's all in there. So get a cup of tea. And but I don't know whether it's really at this point worth it. If you really truly are going to listen to the comments and come back, then my personal thoughts and ones that mirror our residents, you've already heard all of the topics. So I look forward to your second submission.
Thank you.
Ralph, you want to go first?
Ralph, go first.
Okay.
We'll work our way down the table.
Thanks for your presentation, and I appreciate your attitude towards working with the council. I think we've got two decisions. One big decision here, and that is whether we want to have this there in any form or not, or we'd prefer to have commercial or whatever. And I'm not prepared to make that decision at the moment. I'm still listening. But there's a couple of things that I want to emphasize that suggest that it should not be there. One is the fact that it's an isolated, going to be a bedroom community from the look of it. That's not a part of the rest of the community. It's separated by a fairly substantial commercial area. Secondly, the town has committed itself to this being commercial. We don't have much commercial. The town has, I've forgotten how many acres, is it 49,000 or something like that? 124 of them are commercial. That's not much. It's about 0.18% 8%. So we are losing a lot if we don't have commercial here. And as you know, there's been an official plan amendment number 3, which was to make this into a commercial area, and that's gone to the province. We haven't had a review on it yet, but the county approved that, and so we're pretty well set on that idea. So it takes a lot to convince us, I think, that this should be a housing development. I'm going to be brief. If we do go ahead with this with the housing development, there are a number of things that you've heard from various agencies and our staff, and I just list a couple of them that are important. One is that I've called it a bedroom community because I don't sense that there's a place where the people living there would congregate, would play very much, or would have a chance to go and buy a bottle of milk or go to a cafe or something. I think you need to do something and to deal with that. And you need both a recreational area that's of substantial size, and Kim Heaton, our Director of Radiation, has outlined a whole pile of things that you should have in there, including a playing pad, a general purpose field like you play soccer on, tennis and pickleball, picnic areas, etc. And a trail system I think is very important. I'd say a fair proportion of Mono people are walkers, and we have a trail system at the lower end of Mono. It's called the Hike and Bike Trail. It starts at the eastern end of Brookfield on French Drive, and it goes west, and it goes through the Island Lake area, it crosses Highway 10, it goes through Monora Park, etc. And so you can get into Orangeville on that quite easily. If you did have something, a development there, I think it would be important that you have a trail system within the community and that it would connect with our current hike and bike trail. I think you do need a larger buffer zone. I was up there yesterday just looking at the area where the buses are stored, and I think in the winter they turn their engines on for a while and let them, and so the fumes from the diesels are going to go up in there, so you need a little bit more space there. But there are two things that are real problems, and they are water and sewage. And we've got really good reports from our Burnside on both of these. The water problem, they've wondered why you'd have a separate water system when you've got a water system adjacent that you might tie into, and I think you need to explore that as a possibility. And then there's the issue of arsenic. And you have, you found arsenic in 2 of your wells. I think it was 7.73 micrograms per liter in one and 63 in another. And that's very close to the maximum limit. Your report actually uses a maximum of 25, which is outdated. That's about 6 years ago. It was changed to 10. So we really don't know whether or not you're going to have a viable water system there. I think there was some comment about we can treat it. We're presently looking at treating arsenic because we have some in the Coles wells, and it's a study, I think, in evolution. We're not quite sure what to do with it. We have a major grant, and it's a major concern. And you may or may not know it, but we have 2 wells that are in coal, and one of them is shut down now just because of the arsenic issue. So this is a big issue, and you've got to deal with it. The other one is the sewage treatment, and I think that's been dealt with very well by our advisors. So I consider these to be threshold issues that you've got to deal with before we can decide on whether we have a plan or how many houses we would have there. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to echo some of the things that Councillor Manklow has said. I'm neither for or against the application as it is. You've said you're going to listen to our concerns and come back with a second submission, and I thank you for that. Let me tell you, though, if you're going to sell it to me, that I have 6 major concerns, and I'm picking up both from things that Councillor Manklow has said and also the Burnside reports, which are very good. But the first concern I have, and I'll look at David when I say this, because I'm not a planner, but when I look at this and I think of attacking on a residential subdivision to the north end of an industrial park, well, maybe, thank goodness I'm not a planner, because I just can't see that that makes a lot of sense. My second concern, and this is a broad one, is whether or not we need more residential lots in the town of Mono. John and I sit on county council, and we were there when we did the municipal comprehensive review. And that review, we're planning out to 2051. The county's gonna grow to 95,000 people, and we have to plan for that. Mono got off very lightly on that. Out of that study, there's only 180 new homes required in Mono, and we already have, I'll get the number wrong, but approximately half those number of lots are already out there, so we don't really need a lot of new lots. I mean, when you think of it in the big picture, the province wants us to build 1.5 million homes. So if we turn your application down, we're the bad boys, right? But we followed the province's own rules in the municipal comprehensive review, and the town of Mono does not need 349 new residential lots. My third concern, and it's similar to this, is about employment lands. That municipal comprehensive review also looked at the number of jobs we have to plan for. The town of Mono, in the next 30 years, well, not 30, to 2051, has to plan for 500 new employment positions in the town of Mono. I don't know whether they're going to be industrial, commercial, or institutional. I don't know what they're going to be, but I can suggest that where they're going to be, we had our eye on that as employment land, which, as you know, the county, its official plan amendment number 3, has gone down to the province, and they've designated that as employment land. Yes, we haven't heard back from the province yet, but we certainly were planning for that to be employment land. My fourth concern, and it's similar to what Ralph has just said, is about the sewage treatment plant. Look, we've got 2 communal sewage treatment plants in the town right now. They both had trouble. They've both broken down on several occasions, and we've had lawsuits with both of them. Ask me if I want a 3rd communal sewage treatment plant in the town of Mono. I'm very, very nervous, okay, about that. My 5th concern is water, and I know, as Gord has said, we need an environmental assessment to determine all these things, so I don't know. I'm not a hydrogeologist, but I did, in working on that source water protection plan, the aquifer that feeds our Coles and Island Lake wells runs to the southeast from those wells, right across Highway 9 into Caledon. And there's water there. There's certainly water there for the homes that are there now. But as Ralph has said, the standard for arsenic level is 10 micrograms per liter. We are now getting in the range of 7 to 8 micrograms per liter, which is getting pretty close. Not at the dangerous level, but it's getting high enough that we're putting in equipment this year. I know we got a grant, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, I think it's $1.5 million. So, how much was it? I knew he'd correct me, 3.5, okay. So I guess when you come back with a second submission, what I want to know is, when you do the environmental assessment on those wells, and if you find arsenic in your application, tells who's going to pay? Who's going to pay for that? My last concern, and this has been mentioned particularly in the one letter we got from Ron Jameson in the comments section, is traffic. I have vivid memories of when the Brookfield subdivision went in, trying to get out on the first line onto Highway 9 before the traffic lights were installed. I don't know when. MTO has not responded yet to us. No comment. That's their response so far, right? We actually did.
No, to be clear, they said no comment at the moment, but
Yeah.
when it goes through. Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, but their comments were no comments at the present time. So there's going to be a problem if we don't have traffic lights. And to the people who live on French Drive, I'll tell you what's going to happen. The people in your subdivision are going to say, we can't get out onto Highway 9 from the second line. We're going to go across French Drive to the first line. You're going to make French Drive into a thoroughfare. Those are my 6 comments. Again, they're neither dead against the application or for it. I'm just saying, if you're coming back with a second submission, the deputy mayor here has some pretty big concerns about this. Thanks. Elaine. She's got 6 pages, by the way.
And I'm going to read them so that I don't lose track of what I want to say, okay? So notwithstanding.
I need some time, too.
Yeah, notwithstanding the recommendations that were received from commenting agents and the expertise of our engineering, planning, and recreation staff that identified a multitude of issues that required to be addressed, and their concerns that are echoed by community members with regard to critical issues of water, wastewater, traffic, incompatible land use, environmental impact, and destruction of habitat, and more. Our industrial lands are limited. Housing development should be on more appropriate lands. I think using industrial employment designated lands imposes a decision that's not compatible with our vision of our self-determined needs. You know, I go, how much time did we spend in understanding the nature and the culture of our community, the town's desire and needed use for this land, and how we envisage development and how much time was invested in understanding this rural nature. Indeed, your planning cover here and your presentation showed beautiful landscapes with ponies and horses and barns, yet the planning of subdivision submitted obliterates all of that same landscape. The plan does not present a community neighborhood built for people to live, play, and work and age in. I'm not sure what complete community means to you. It's referenced several times in there, but the definition by the province is the growth plan promotes the development of complete communities where people can live, work, shop, and access services in close proximity. Further, the definition is complete communities provide a diversity of housing to meet identified community needs and accommodate people at all stages of life and provide a wider range of employment opportunities, amenities, and services within a 15 to 20-minute walk. I do not see where the community needs have been identified. I'm not sure how we were consulted for that. I do not see employment opportunities, amenities, or services. I do not see a walkable community for all stages of life. Mitchell Cohen is the president and CEO of Daniels Corp. He was a huge housing activist and became a big-time developer. He says opportunity must be leveraged for community benefit with affordable housing and inclusive local economic development at the top of the agenda. He advocates that development must benefit everyone, not just the developer, and says it can, provided the starting point is a shared vision and responsibility. I see the town's vision for development at one end of the spectrum, wanting to have employment lands, and I see the developer's submitted plan for development at the other. At our previous planning meeting, you so kindly stated that you would be willing to seek common ground for the town of Mono. And I hope that this meeting sets up the dialogue for meaningful engagement with those who will be impacted, both current and future residents and citizens. So I look forward to working towards a plan that speaks to a real, complete community that provides options for aging, from being single, family, empty nester, senior, assisted living, including features such as a community center, a daycare, seniors residence, convenience stores, a soccer or cricket pitch, a community square, and with consideration for mixed uses, providing all things that allow for the well-being of those who live and work there. And mixed use says, mixed use provides more than one use or purpose in a shared building or development area. Mixed-use projects may include a combination of housing, office, retail, medical, recreation, commercial, or industrial components. So I look forward to what's next. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to confine my remarks to the sole topic of transportation. And I was surprised to see an initial response from the Ministry of Transportation that they had no position on this. And I thought, this can't be right. So I think our planner prompted them to detail why they had no position. And according to an email that I believe was sent to the town, and it may well be part of our package now, the explanation is that the subject site is not located within the limits of our permit control area for Highway 9, nor does it fall under the category of a large traffic generator, which would also place it under the jurisdiction of MTO. Well, you know, I think the number of homes you propose to build there and the number of cars that are going to be attracted to those homes creates a de facto large traffic generator, especially at rush hour. This is a situation where I'd say 90% of your residents are going to be traveling south. They're not going to be traveling north on the second line. They're going to be going out to Highway 9. They're going to be executing a right-hand turn to get to Highway 10. they're going to be executing a left-hand turn to get to Airport Road. It is going to be unmitigated chaos. And we saw that, we've experienced it with the first line until those lights were finally put in. We are still waiting for lights at places such as Camilla, which you'll discover is just outside here, and when you try and navigate a left-hand turn to go south, you know, keep your fingers crossed that you aren't struck. The act that gives them the authority to basically say that it's not an issue speaks to use of any land, any part of which lies within 800 meters of any limit of a controlled access highway. For the purposes of, and I really enjoy this, for the purposes of a shopping center, stadium, fairground, racetrack, drive-in theater, that tells you how old this section is, or any other purposes that cause persons to congregate in large numbers. I mean, that's their tunnel vision criteria. They then hedge their comments a little bit by saying that MTO has no comments or concerns with the proposed development at this time. However, should the subject development warrant highway improvements such as signals at second line intersection, then MTO must be included in the town's review. Well, you'd hope the ministry would come to the conclusion that a signalized intersection was a good thing, okay? Not look to us to approve and then go after them and then get quoted, well, it's not in our permit control area, therefore you're not going to get signalization, at least from us. So it's a little bit of a circular argument, and I think it's almost a deal breaker from the standpoint of the anticipated commuter aspect of this proposal. And I'm very unsettled by that aspect alone. So I just put that out there that a lot of thought has got to be put into the question of traffic impact on second line. And quite frankly, if this were to go ahead, I think we as a town would have to look at that cutout in the Coles subdivision as another exit entrance into the subject property. Because the last thing we want is traffic flowing out, going down to French Drive and creating more chaos than we already have there. We can't afford that. So those are my remarks.
Want to come back at us?
No, all I want to say is thank you very much. Right, we hear you. We figured that out from all the comments we've received so far, but these were additional comments, and thank you very much for them. And we'll be working away at it, and we'll be working with your staff, meeting with your staff to come up and try and address each of these issues and come up with a second submission. So, thank you
When
very
can we expect the second submission?
There's a lot of work to be done. I can't say for sure when we'll be able to do a second submission. There's a lot of work to be done. I think the first thing we're going to be doing is meeting with Mr. Trotman and the consultants and seeing how we can address some of these issues.
And then there's the issue raised by Mr. Feniak of the environmental assessment.
Absolutely. That's all part of that.
A significant undertaking, and not one that is done quickly, by the way. Anyways, I just on behalf of council, I appreciate your openness to hearing from the public first and foremost, from us, and from our staff, and we look forward to the next submission.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you for the public came out tonight. We really appreciate the comments. Thank you.
And we're going to let's have a break. That's what I was just about to say. Let's take 10 minutes, and then we'll resume if we can.
We are back live.
Thank you, everyone. And I do have a proposed motion here that pertains to the statutory public meeting that we've just had. And I'll read it and see if we have a mover and a seconder. The Council for the Town of Mono has held a statutory public meeting under the Planning Act and received and heard from the applicant, two developments and its consultants together with the town's planning consultant and the town's engineer along with the public. And that line 2 developments have requested an opportunity to further address this information by preparing and filing a responding second submission, and that Council defers a decision on the applications to permit second line developments to continue as requested. Move. Second? Okay. Councillor Mantalo, any debate, discussion? And that motion is carried, not seeing any opposition. Okay. Unfinished business and deferred council items. Any comments on the list? Not seeing any. So we have the Headwaters Farm Fresh Guide. I thought we had dealt with this.
No, this is the proposal coming back.
Oh, this is the proposal coming back from the committee. My apologies.
Yeah,
We asked the committee. Yeah.
Yeah, they did.
Okay. Okay. Mike? Sorry.
Declare a conflict.
Okay.
So I'm declaring a conflict, indirect conflict, as I am contracted by HCIA, and this is an HCIA-supported project, so.
Okay, Mike.
Your worship, through the rest of council. So basically, I was able to review the request from council to the DEI committee, or sorry, to the Climate Change Committee. It was recommended by the committee that we leave the reserves intact. Our landowner relationships with respect to the Living Snow program, they would rather have snow fence instead of trees. Because they don't want to plow around them, or farm around them. So we're a little stalled on our Living Snow Fence program. So this would free up $3,000 that could go back into the council donation budget line, which council had removed this year. And with that, I had a recommendation that I believe you have a motion. And with that, I believe, your worship, you have
I do.
A recommendation resolution, but that would leave outstanding an item which is now available for council to debate, which would be, should the resolution be approved, there would be $2,700 now for council to discuss this donation from last council meeting, which was a $1,000 donation request, and that would leave council with some money should there be a worthy cause coming forward for the public interest.
Okay. I will read the motion and then we can debate. That we make the following minor budget amendments. Number 1, transfer $3,000 from Climate Change Environmental Living Snow Fence to council donations. Number 2, transfer the $300 Dufferin County Multicultural Foundation sponsorship from DEI training to council donations, and that we approve a $1,000 donation to the Headwaters Food and Farming Alliance for the 2024 Headwaters Farm Fresh Guide to be funded from council donations. Do I have a mover to that?
Ralph should be.
Ralph? Seconder? Deputy Mayor? Discussion?
I'm all in favor. Let's go.
Well, let's let everybody
It's late.
chime in.
Go ahead.
It seems a satisfactory solution to me.
Melinda?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, this is a great idea, obviously, to support the farmland and tourism, and it's really focused specifically for our Mono residents. It advertises their properties. It advertises to our residents where they can go and get local. Like it all seems to be a climate change initiative. So when we started, just on principle again, when we started to say that we weren't going to give donations out, and everybody got on the bandwagon saying that that was a good idea, I kind of agree that we shouldn't be taking tax money for things and deciding on other things and everything and then giving it away to people. But when things do fit into the real slot, I'm not sure why we do why we are obligated to do the creative accounting of taking it out of climate when this really is something, the first one really was worthy of being saying that it's in the DEI. Since these are two new areas that we have asked our staff to start up with, right? The DEI as something that's new in the last couple of years, as well as the climate emergency with our motion coming later, right? So these should be things worthy of spending money on their own. So I don't know why we need to take it out of and re-go into donations, because the debate that we all had about the donating thing, it just is moot when we just massage the money around. Obviously, I'm in favor of supporting it. And I also want to say on public, though I know nobody, but thank you that you're here to the public, but I know that people, don't listen, that there's another opportunity to support this worthy organization coming up on April 18th. They're having a fundraiser dinner at Mrs. Mitchell's that you can get a ticket for and go. So those are principal issue things. Obviously, I go ahead with it, but I would prefer that this weren't a donation, that I would prefer that this was something that we debated to find actually well within our own confines of the stuff that's going on in Mono with our fabulous residents and council members, since she's even involved. The idea that we already are doing stuff for climate, protecting farmland, encouraging people not to drive places, all the things I already said. So that's how I think the money should come out.
Well, and I'm going to lobby very hard for less in preparation of next year's budget to get rid of the word donation, because we've tended to lump everything under donation when in fact I would argue that this support is more like purchasing an ad or being a sponsor. And that's different in my way of thinking than calling it a donation simply because we've historically done that.
Just thought came to my mind, what about community sponsorship?
Something like that,
Okay.
but not
donations.
Not donation, because I think that gives it the wrong connotation. So we have a motion on the floor. Ralph, go ahead.
Melinda, you make a good point. I thought that this was very much an initiative that fell within the climate change plan. But we did make a decision. It was a motion of Elaine's, I think, that we ask the Climate Change Committee, which is a staff committee, if they would consider taking the money out of the climate change budget. And they made a decision not to, and they come up with another alternative. So I accept that as being a working arrangement.
It's an elegant solution. Thank you. So any opposition to the motion? Seeing none,
I'll go get a loan.
motion is carried.
Deputy Mayor, next, you can sit down, I'll take that.
Yeah.
No, I need the exercise.
Okay, well, we could take care of the water reports while Freddie's out of the room.
Well, but what was the item, what was the other item on the unfinished? Did it not require something to say?
No, I asked if
Oh,
there were
just
any
our whole
comments.
list. Yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes.
yeah. So moving on, we have the 2023 annual and summary reports for both the Cardinal Woods and Island Lake drinking water systems. And Matt, I'm going to ask you to tee this up, and I know that council has some questions.
Sorry, Council, I wrote the memo, so.
Oh, you did?
I'll,
Okay,
yeah,
sorry.
so For the time being, I'll deal with water for sure.
Okay.
So annually, these are required by February 28th and March 31st of each year. Notifications were posted in the Orangeville Banner, Orangeville Citizen for 2 weekends in a row. And they are generally a recap of the ongoings in our water systems over the course of 2023. Council has seen all the concerns with respect to these in prior MECP reports, and it also outlines our sampling programs, our water quality, and it highlights some of the Ontario Drinking Water Standard allowances that are allowed in our drinking water. In review of the sodium, one of the notables is the sodium content in our water. Since 2019, I went back to, and while we're still not down below the aesthetic or the drinking water standards, our sodium did drop this year, and it is showing a small drop in aquifer contamination by sodium. So those are good things.
Fred?
Yeah, I have 9 comments to make, which I think legally we are required to read these reports and ask questions of staff. On June 17th, 2023 at Cardinal Woods, we had an improperly connected chlorine analyzer supply line. On February 14th, 2023 at Island Lake, we had sodium over 20 milligrams per liter, and it had not been tested in the preceding 57 months. On May 8th, 2023 at Island Lake, we had a valve inadvertently left in the closed position. On January 17th, 2023 at Cardinal Woods, it was discovered that the maximum flow rate for well number 4 was set too high and had been this way since the summer of 2022. On September 5th, 2023 at Cardinal Woods, we had 3 UV reference sensor checks completed during the inspection review period that fell outside the 20 to 40 day time limit. On July 17th, 2023 at Island Lake, Coles well number 2, the wellhead gasket required replacement, and the MEC inspector indicated that repair work did not take place within a reasonable time. On July 17th, 2023 at Island Lake, we had more frequent arsenic sampling times. We agreed to more frequent arsenic sampling times, and these were not being adhered to. On July 17th, 2023 at Island Lake, we had raw water microbiological sampling and testing not completed on time. On December 7th, 2023 at Island Lake, an internal audit discovered that there was some missed carbon monoxide monitors. My question to staff is this: do we have confidence in our operator?
Yes, the solutions for those events that you outlined were identified in the reports that council has in front of them, and we continue through our drinking water quality management system to work through these issues. Should council wish, I can go through the individual items for the actionable recommendations that have occurred. But yes, we're confident in our operator that these were operational errors, and no quality issues to the residents was that concern.
Yeah, you don't need to go through them one by one. I did read the reports, and I know that. It's just that every year we get these little lists of small operational issues, which sort of in back of my mind says, are these guys doing a proper job when they run our water system? You don't have to answer that right now, Mike. I'm just saying I have an obligation to ask you that question because I have some concerns every year about this time.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Elaine, and then Ralph.
Thank you for listing them all very nicely. And they do all seem like very, minor but really, I'm going to say this and I don't mean it, but really dumb things. Like, you know, they really should not have happened. And I guess, I know they have standard operating procedures and you keep updating them every time something happens. But it just seems like, do they do it in pairs? Do they check each other? Or they're not the right checklist? It's kind of, it's just like, it just niggles at you. Anyway, I have some other questions. So in the Cardinal Woods drinking system report that you fill out, the annual report, on page 2 of 9, it has a section that says, provide a brief description and breakdown of monetary expenses incurred, or the breakdown of monetary expenses. So on this one and the one for the other report, there's no list of expenses incurred, and is there a reason for that? Like, we don't report that?
So page 2 of 9 of the Cardinal Woods Annual Summary Report,
Yeah,
provide brief description and breakdown sorry, am I on the right page?
yeah,
So it identified the high lift pumps, if, as council will remember, that was $300,000 plus or minus that council approved in tender for replacement this fall.
Right,
The
but
well pump motor was, we'll all remember the catastrophic failure of the MW3 pump that caused a very serious water notice to the residents. And the control valve preventative maintenance program is a new initiative that the operating authority has put in place that will look out to 10 years of maintenance on our valves to ensure that they're running at proper pressures. And so those are considered the significant items for Cardinal Woods. Switching over to Island Lake, we will have some in the future, which is the EA that council passed a couple of meetings ago.
I guess my question was, I was expecting to see the dollar amount for these repairs in this report, but that's not required?
No, this is a high-level
Yeah, yeah.
overview, annual review.
Okay.
And those are through the council minutes that we've participated through.
Right.
You won't see the control valve preventative maintenance program as an individual item because it's monetary over a course of 10 years.
Right. No, that was just my question when I was looking at that, but thank you.
Through the mayor to the CAO, I see 3 arsenic levels, or 4 arsenic levels there. They range from 6 to 7.9. I understand they're not an exceedance. My question is, what is this may be unfair to you, you may not have the information, but it's what is the trending been happening over the last, say, 3 or 4 years with these numbers?
So without having the exact numbers, definitely the Coles system trend is anywhere from 6 to 8 would be a reasonable, but we do have our high spikes. There was no AWQI's adverse water quality reports in this year, but we have seen them in the past, and that resulted in the grant applications that we did make. But generally, they're running consistently at 6 to 8 micrograms, and I believe you commented on that with the test wells in the Line 2 developments. We're running 0.73, and I think that's micrograms.
Yeah,
Or sorry.
So you can translate it the same way.
Yeah, so it was the same, basically the same. So we're finding that that the entire aquifer is running right around 6 to 8 micrograms per liter of arsenic.
I don't mean to get into an advanced hydrogeological question here, which I probably can't understand, but we did stop down one of the Coles wells because it was higher, and yet we're saying that the entire aquifer probably has arsenic in it. What's happening there? Why is it high in one?
Well, maybe I'm in error saying the entire aquifer, because
Okay.
the arsenic comes naturally through the veins,
Yes.
in the geological veins in the earth. So we could be pulling the Coles well, PW1, I believe, that's shut down. We believe it was deeper, and it was pulling from a different vein.
Okay.
So it was running right around 12.
Yes.
The original intent was to mix those two to hope we came around 7, 8, or 9. That didn't work, and once we had to remove the Coles well from production because of the high hits, but we're still pumping it to rock because we still believe it to be a viable well that could be treated. So we are exercising the well in hopes that the EA brings out a positive result on the removal of the slightly below standard arsenic.
The second question, Fred, thank you for enumerating all those seemingly minor issues. I'd like to know what is the process that you take with respect to any one of these in terms of dealing with it or investigating or following up?
So the bulk of the comments that Deputy Mayor Nix spoke about were reportable. So they do go to the MECP immediately when we do find the notification, or when we do come across them. The operating authority is required. Resulting in that usually is a standard operating procedure that's created. These items are also added to our drinking water, our management review meetings at the end of the fall, and they are rehatched to ensure that the SOPs are being, staff are being trained, and that they're being implemented as per the new SOPs.
Is that the level or the timing at which the information or the discussion goes back to the operator?
No, the bulk of them are administrative changes immediately, especially the ones that got out of the sampling routine from 30 to 20, not more than 40 days, and the other one, they were very, we were doing it monthly on those, and eventually the monthly went from 30 days to more than 40 days. So first of the month, second week of the month. So those SOPs have been trained to the operators. As soon as the SOPs are sent to the province for review and confirmation of rectification, the operators are provided training, and they become a normal review period, and we do review them for compliance at the end of the season with the management review and risk assessment meetings.
So that creates a learning opportunity for everyone.
It does. It does. It creates a learning opportunity on top of all the other items. I know council seems that these are very nitpicky, but council's done the tours. The testing is rigorous. I think there was 8,000, well, chlorine, for example, grab samples were 8,760. It's a lot of samples. It's a lot of testing. There's a lot of ticking parts that make this operation run. And while they may irk you, the smallness of the simpleness of them, they do fall into a category with a large area of items that are required to run the system.
I have a quick question. Is the operator fully staffed, and is it a fairly stable situation?
They've made some great changes, and to the best of my knowledge, they're fully staffed now with a public works manager and a certified operator, and they have their on-call system all in place now. So, and compensation changes have been made as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
If there's no further questions or comments, I have a motion that council for the town of Mono receive the 2023 annual and summary reports for the Cardinal Woods and Island Lake drinking water systems as per Ontario Regulation 170-03, Section 11, and Schedule 22 of the Safe Drinking Water Act 2002. Moved by Councillor Davies, seconded by Deputy Mayor Nix. Any opposition to passing this? And that motion is carried. Kite fighting bylaw, first reading. I'm glad to see it's not a prohibition against kite flying. Yes. It's very specific.
So as directed by council, we've brought a bylaw that is specific to kite fighting. It bans the idea of kite fighting, and it also has a prohibition against the use of string that is defined in the bylaw as being hazardous, and that definition, I say, is in the bylaw. So those are the two prohibitions within there. It's very specific.
Any questions, Fred?
Yeah, congratulations. I know you basically followed the Oakville bylaw, but I'm glad we finally got this. There was only one thing that when I read it, and maybe I read it too quickly, I think there's an inconsistency. In the introduction, you say, the attached draft kite fighting bylaw applies to all lands in Mono, excepting town, county, school board, and crown lands. That's what it says. But then I get to section 3.1 of the bylaw, and it says, no person or group of persons shall engage in kite fighting on any private property or public property within the town. Hold it. You just said in the introduction that we're exempting town, county, school board, and crown lands.
This is just to cover if there's other public lands, so we've identified specific public lands in which we've provided the exemption, because we know those organizations and they have jurisdiction. But to ensure we haven't missed any other classification of public land, we've put it in the broader prohibition. It's just a catch-all safety.
The bylaw, when it says all or public property. Okay, I'm still confused. If someone went up to Mono Center, which is town-owned land, could they do kite flying there? Kite fighting, could they do it there?
So no, they couldn't. However, the town of Mono, right, or the government that owned that property could, of course, permit it, because they have the authority in this bylaw to allow an activity to happen, if they so wish.
But the de facto position is that it's not allowed.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, now I understand. Thank you.
Okay, I have a motion that we give first reading to a bylaw to prohibit kite fighting. Moved by Councillor Capes, seconded by Deputy Mayor, who's been passionate on this. Any further discussion?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Melinda.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Well, just the comment that, you know, these fines are great. This
Yep,
is
finally.
big
Yes.
business here, because we know that, of course, the event that created this picture on the front here was, you know, 7,000 people who paid money to go, so they got money, that if, you know, this is great.
Could I just ask if the clerk, is it possible to send a letter to the event center pointing out that we've just passed this, or we've almost passed this bylaw?
Well, it's been given first reading, so at this point, we'll now promote it to the general public for input and comments. And I'll ensure that the OAS is
On notice.
pointed out to them that this is,
Excellent, excellent.
this is
Anything
in
else?
development.
Any opposed to the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you. Next motion is my motion on the
You guys can't leave yet, we got another hour to go.
Canada carbon rebate. You'll find this interesting, folks. So I'm going to read my motion.
We're coming to the meat of the meeting.
So whereas the Government of Canada offers a quarterly basic Canada carbon rebate of 140 plus additional amounts for spouses, common law partners, and children, and whereas a rural supplement of 10% of the basic CCR, which is Canada carbon rebate, soon to be 20%, is available to individuals and families provided they qualify. And whereas eligibility for the rural supplement for residents of, quote, small and rural communities is arbitrarily based on whether one lives inside or outside a census metropolitan area, and whereas the town of Mono, a small and rural community, arbitrarily falls within the Toronto census metropolitan area, and therefore making its residents ineligible for the rural supplement, and whereas CMAs were designed for the purpose other than determining eligibility for government rebate, and whereas the residents of Mono and other small communities facing such things as significant carbon charges for commuting long distances for employment due to a lack of viable commuter transit options and competitively priced heating fuel options, therefore be it resolved that the town of Mono asks the Government of Canada to change its eligibility criteria for the rebate supplements to include small and rural communities such as Mono, Orangeville, and other municipalities, regardless of whether they fall within the Toronto metropolitan census area. If I can move it? Okay. And any discussion? This was on the front page of the Star.
Yes.
Can you do the math for me? How much is this going to mean to a resident?
It's going to be an additional roughly $240 a year.
So it's
That's for a family of four.
it's 140 per quarter times 4.
So your quarterly takes you just over $1,000, and then this tops it up by $240 odd.
Okay, it says here 140 per quarter.
That's the, that is the basic. Okay,
Right,
so
okay.
I'm wrong on my $1,000. That 140 is the basic only.
So that'd be
Times-
560 per year.
Correct.
And 20% of that.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's how it works.
family of 4.
Yeah. So it's not a lot, but it's very arbitrary, and as the article pointed out, the residents of an island in the middle of Lake Simcoe are classed as being in downtown Toronto by this mapping. So it's ridiculous.
Under the heading of funny mapping.
Yeah.
So it strikes me that I mean, this is great, and I appreciate that you were in the newspaper because a reporter found this, and it's an oddity and everything. But the actual upshot of what we're asking for is just that they get the money, whereas really the bottom line change is that they need to look at the census metropolitan areas and how they define that.
Or maybe abandon that as the way of determining whether one is a small community or a rural community.
Right, which your resolution doesn't say that. It just says, give us the money.
Well, I think we make a start with that. I mean, in the sense that this is a problem that is Canada-wide. It's not simply applicable to us. Yeah.
Well, I know, and it's well, exactly, and so that it is a problem with the grander scheme rather, but.
Yeah, so I'm saying change the eligibility criteria for the supplements. If we say don't use the census maps, then I think the onus is on us to sort of solve their problem, whereas the motion is simply saying change the criteria so that we do get the top up. Any further discussion? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Next item is a motion by Councillor Manctalo, which I'll read. Whereas our Earth is warming and the lives of people throughout the world are being impacted by more extreme weather events, thawing glaciers, rising sea levels, increased temperatures, and drought, and whereas one of the town's overriding goals is to protect our environment and rural character, and whereas in 2017, the town of Mono joined the Partners for Climate Change Climate Protection Program, which is a 5-step milestone framework to support the reduction of greenhouse gases, and whereas the town implemented the Mono Community Climate Action Plan, completing milestone 3 of the framework, and whereas the town has established greenhouse emissions reduction targets, including reaching net zero emissions by 2050, and whereas this declaration, the town reasserts its embrace of our community action plan, and whereas it was easy to feel untouched, and that climate change was somebody else's problem, we now have experienced climate impacts on our community, including flooding, heat waves, and rural road damage as a result of repeated winter freeze-thaw cycles, and whereas many of us struggle to understand that there is an emergency, whereas Council has difficulty reconciling our country's modest mitigation actions with the fact that we are living in a climate crisis, and whereas there are significant economic benefits and opportunities for communities which transition from fossil fuel-based economies, and whereas the declaration of a climate emergency signals our pledge to significant climate action to reduce greenhouse gases, and whereas through this declaration we freely recognize and take ownership of the climate change crisis, therefore be it resolved that Council declares that climate change constitutes an emergency for the town of Mono, and that we direct staff to ensure that climate considerations are central to all future staff reports and operations, and whereas the town of Mono continues to support climate initiatives and solutions to the climate crisis which are equitable for all residents. And we have a mover in Ralph Magdalo. Do we have a seconder? Fred Nix?
Nice succinct motions.
Does anyone want to speak to it, or is it self-explanatory?
I think it's self-explanatory.
Councillor Capes?
No, I think it's great, and I guess that we've talked about this before, and we've talked about having a climate lens, so I just want to make sure this isn't imposing an onerous benchmark or restriction or hardship on staff.
Mike, would you?
So council recall during 2024 budget submissions, climate lens was not identified. It was identified as a future project inside of the corporate action plan, which staff asked for a $1,000 donation, reserve contribution that council decided not to apply. So our climate lens is not in staff work plan for this year unless council decides differently.
Well, it's fair to say you assess decisions and proposals made to council with the climate issue in mind. In other words, you are already putting it through a lens, maybe not as formal as...
Under the 3 E's as
Yeah.
environment.
Yeah, exactly.
We definitely are utilizing stepping stones across, even with diversity, equity, inclusion. While we don't have a DEI lens, we are looking at items that way, and that would be an appropriate statement, Your Worship, that you just said.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Mayor. Yeah, I mean, that's what I was thinking. Like, it's great, but I don't understand why. Like, I don't understand. It sounds alarmist to say an emergency, so okay, well then what are we going to do? And then it's just going to, well, we're going to have the staff do something, and which is not quite clear on what you're going to do. And it strikes me that it would take more time and money if you're going to ask for it or follow up on it. So I thought it all sounded really great, and then it kind of fell flat as to what exactly it is that we're asking to have happen.
Well, thanks for your comments, and I appreciate that concern, Melinda. If you look at the 6th paragraph, I think why we're doing this is articulated there. It's really a reassertion of what we're already doing, and it's bringing it up to the forefront. It says keeping it in view. That's what it's all about. It's something that we're not the first community to do this, as you probably know. There's been thousands that have done it. But it does say that we do embrace the plan. It's reminding people about it. And it further on in the second last one, it says that this declaration is a signal of our pledge. It's letting people know that we really are serious about this. And I think it's of modest value, but it's something that we should be doing as a town as a part of our general climate change initiative.
Okay. Any further discussion? Any opposed to the motion? Motion is carried. Next item is OPP Additional Police Services Agreement. And Fred, if you can tee this up, it's part of the overall conversion to a detachment board, of which Mono would be paired with Mulmer and Melanchthon.
That's correct, Your Worship. So this is basically a housekeeping operation. We already are receiving this service and paying for it. This agreement and the accompanying bylaw to approve the agreement is just to bring that service into alignment with the new legislation that comes into effect on 1st of April.
And our supplement is protected in this agreement? The supplement that we pay for additional policing?
Yeah, so you'll notice in this agreement, they've provided an estimate of what the cost is for that for 2024. It's in line with what we've seen in previous years. And again, that is re-estimated each year by the OPP in the same manner it has been previously.
Thank you. And our policing is actually a little down this year in terms of budget. Is that still the case?
I'm afraid I don't have that number with me, Your
Just
Worship.
curious. I have a motion then that we introduce and give the necessary readings to a bylaw authorizing the town of Mono to enter into a 5-year agreement for additional police services substantially in the form as attached as Schedule A to the bylaw, that it be signed by the mayor and clerk for the town of Mono, sealed and engrossed in the bylaw book. Do I have a mover? Councillor Capes, seconded by Deputy Mayor. Any further discussion? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Schedule A, if you can take us through what you've received.
So the first item that was asked to be spoken to is number 5, the Superior Court decision on 833160 4th line.
Okay. And who requested that?
That was Councillor Manktalow.
So I requested this to bring it up to the surface so that we could
Excuse me, Counselor, could you put your mic on?
Sorry.
Thank you.
I requested this because I wanted to bring the issue, make it sure it's quite visible, particularly to our residents and to recognize the staff. This is a decision which we worked on for 4 years. The staff, particularly the clerk's office, and our Mr. Lammerding, our bylaw officer, have put a lot of work into this, as well as our legal advisors. And I'd say it's been a long time coming, but it's been very satisfactory because it authorizes the town to remove all of the refuse from this property and at the cost of the defendant. And so I congratulate the staff for their work in this, and well done.
I have a question, and I think I'm correct. The land is for sale now. So does, if it sells, does this court order apply to the next owner?
Yeah, the intent is that this will be registered on title and any costs will be added to the tax as taxes. So to the tax roll as taxes.
Good. Okay, next item.
Next was number 8, Orangeville contract award for the 3-tier water budget system, and Deputy Mayor and Councillors Davey asked for this. Sorry, Deputy Mayor Nix and Councillor Davey.
Well, I asked it because there's one thing in it that I don't understand. Just the background here is a Tier 3 study. That's what we did, whatever it was, 12 or 15 years ago, that determined that our Cardinal Woods wells had a water quantity threat. Most of Orangeville's wells, I think all but one, had the same threat, and they're in the same aquifer as our Cardinal Woods wells, the Guelph-Annabelle aquifer. So as a result of that, the 4 municipalities, Orangeville, Mono, East Gary, and Amaranth, took quite a bit of time. Mike was with me at the original meeting. We took, 4 years or something. We wrote an agreement. It's too complicated to go through here now, but it basically says at a certain trigger, we have to redo this study. And then there's a cost-sharing formula at the end of the agreement. And my puzzlement is, that's the agreement, there's the cost-sharing formula, and I wish I could find the exact words. Now this letter that we get says, oh, they'll take out the cost of their permit to take water out of their share of what they owe, which really confuses me. How can one party to a 4-party agreement write a letter and just say, oh, we're not going to quite follow the agreement we signed, and there's a formula here for cost sharing. We're going to take out the cost of our permit to take water. How can they get away with that? I'm not sure who I'm asking this question of.
So, so without looking at the agreement, the permit to take water has no benefit to the town of Mono, Amaranth, or East Gary. The permit to take water for the Pullen Well will fall in the hands of Orangeville. It's their permit. It's their permit, so allowing them to pay for their entire permit is appropriate, in my opinion, because they're the only beneficial.
But that's not what it says, Mike. Doesn't it say they will take that cost out of this cost-sharing formula. Am I misreading
It'll be
it?
deducted
Yeah.
from the calculation of the allocation, which in my mind means they'll pay for it.
That's not, that's not the
Before
way
they,
I'm reading it.
before they split the the cost allocation, they're going to deduct the cost of the permit to take water, is the way I read it.
So it's not factored in.
Oh, okay.
I had that same read, I read it. I mean, it's a very short letter, right? I mean, I had read it and had come up empty as to what it meant, but yes, now I see. So thank you for that.
By the way, our share of the cost will be, in the example they give in the agreement, we're down around 3 or 4% or something. They calculate it based on our water usage over the last number of years and the amount of lands we've developed. So they'll have to redo those calculations. But when they did the one example back 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago, there is a minimum, $5,000, right, that every municipality has to pay. But we came in about 3% of the total cost last time. So it's not a big item for us.
Okay. Next,
Next was item 9, the retirement of Chief of Dufferin County Paramedic Services, Tom Reed, and that was Councillor Mangtalo asked.
So Tom Reed has provided exceptional leadership here as the chief of the Dufferin County Paramedic Service. He's initiated many projects within the paramedic service. In fact, he was one of the major players in switching ambulance driver, moving ambulance personnel up into the paramedic level. Tom, his interests have extended beyond the ambulance service to almost every area of healthcare within the purview of the Headwaters Hospital. And in fact, he is actually, and his group are funded through the Headwaters Hospital, which I think is unique in Ontario.
it is.
So I'm bringing this up because I'd like to suggest that we recognize him by sending him a note of thanks for his work and for his commitment to excellence and his management of the ambulance service in Dufferin in Ontario.
And I'd be delighted to do that on behalf of council because I've worked with Tom over the years and we actually worked together on that whole issue of governance of the ambulance service being dealt with through Headwaters as opposed to a standalone hospital or county service, and it's actually saved us a lot of money locally over the last 23 years. Okay. Yeah, I'll write something up. I'll write something up, Fred.
So the next item was number 10, the Dufferin Board of Trade support of CCR Rural Supplement, and that was Councillor Davey.
Yeah, thanks very much. I just was curious as to how this letter, which came out on March 14th, I was just curious how they were supporting a motion that we only just made tonight on the 26th.
They may have been supporting Orangeville, who had a similar motion. Orangeville's motion passed, I think, 2 weeks ago. But it's almost
It's
identical.
addressed to us. It's addressed to you and us. Mayor Creelman and Mono councillors, on behalf of the Dufferin Board, we express the full support of the town of Mono's motion
Okay.
to urge the government of Canada.
I may have shared a draft, but I made it very plain that it wasn't coming up until tonight. But in the same period of time, Orangeville's motion is virtually identical to ours for a number of reasons.
Well, that's great, but I just
Yeah.
kind of wonder how business happens that we end up getting support before I even found out about it as a person who was voting on it.
Blame me, I probably shared it with them because they are anxious they're on this issue big time. And they're also on it from the standpoint of small business being, not getting anything at all in order to fund the rural supplement Canada-wide. So there's another issue for their membership involved in more than simply the rural supplement. It's the fact that small business is getting shortchanged.
Which is all very well, except that my point is.
Yep. Well,
Hearing my point, right?
I apologize if I shared the wording with them, but they were anxious to get going on they're doing their own campaign on this thing.
Right, which was so right, I mean, so that your explanation of it doesn't seem to really jive with, if they're doing something and it's really important to them
As I
and they're an
said,
entity.
I apologize if I jumped the gun, but I thought it was important that they have some knowledge of the fact that I was preparing to put a motion to this council, and we've done it tonight.
Right, thank you.
Next item.
So next item is number 12, the NVCA Plan Review and Development Permitting by Councillor Manctalo.
Thank you. As a board member of NVCA, we discussed this quite a bit at the last board meeting. Fred will know about it, and I suspect that David Trotman, it really addresses your department. This is regulatory changes 4124. Actually, NVCA has been putting these changes into effect over the last few months, so nothing very dramatic will be happening. They actually become effective on April the 1st. There's just two things I'd like to mention. One is that the boundary, which used to be 100 meters as the protected area, the regulated area, has now been shrunk to 30 meters. I asked our planner of NVCA what implication this would have. He said he didn't think it would have much implication for individuals, but it would have a big effect for a larger building developments. The second thing about this regulation of note is the timelines, and Dave will be wanting to study those a bit. The timelines are a little bit tighter, 21 days for pre-consultation and 90 days for decision.
Thank you for bringing this forward, because 90 days, regardless of the size of the development, like that's, and 120 down to 30, like that's, again, pro dig up the environment.
Thank you very much for bringing this up, because that, I wanted to mention this to the, but again, there were so many negatives, they have to go back to the drawing board tonight. But his buffer zone was, I wasn't quite sure what it was, and because there was a house right there, and there didn't seem to be any real, and so even if it was at 120, and now they're changing it to 30, was that the numbers you just said? Wow, it just strikes me that the whole, that I don't think that we can be sure that anything with respect to conservation is a given, safe thing anymore, and that it's up to us,
Okay. Next item.
Next item is number 14, Amaranth's resolution concerning operational budget funding, and that was Councillor Davey.
I just wanted to, because I want to get on the bandwagon of everybody supporting everybody else's motions that come through. And so this one spoke to me, that I thought it would be a good thing that the town of Mono should agree. Support.
So do we have a prepared motion on that, Fred?
So, motion I recommend for council is that council for the town of Mono supports and endorses the Township of Amaranth's resolution calling on the province of Ontario to provide equivalent operational funding amounts, and that, let me re-say that phrase again. That council for the town of Mono supports and endorses the Township of Amaranth's resolution calling on the province of Ontario to provide equivalent operational funding amounts as that recently offered to the City of Toronto to all Ontario municipalities.
So you're moving that, and do we have a
Yes.
seconder? Councillor Capes seconds. Any opposition? Motion passes. Any more items?
And one more item, which is the next resolution from Amaranth concerning Highway 413, and that was Councillors Davey and Manctalo.
So mindful of the fact we've already passed a motion in opposition.
Pardon?
We've already opposed the 403.
Yeah, this is a little more innovative because they've used the word pause rather than stop it up, but they've also said, let's put the money into housing. And I think that's kind of a novel thing on,
Or how about transit?
pardon?
How about transit?
Well, you can have your own motion about transit, but this is a motion, and I'd endorse that we should support it.
I agree, and it's telling the government to put their money where their mouth
Yeah,
is.
exactly,
I
exactly.
loved it. I thought, wow, Amaranth was hot.
They're really picking up the pace. Do we have something to consider?
I do have a proposed resolution for council, and it goes such. Whereas council for the town of Mono passed a resolution in 2021 expressing its objection to Highway 413, be it resolved that council for the town of Mono supports and endorses the resolution passed by the township of Amaranth, calling on the province of Ontario to cancel the construction of Highway 413 and redirect the approximately $8 billion towards municipal infrastructure, and that at least half those funds be allocated to small urban and rural Ontario municipalities.
I love it. Support that. Yep, okay. So, Councillor Davy, do you want to move that?
Yes, please.
Okay. And Councillor Manctillo seconds. Any further debate, discussion?
Just, I have
Yeah.
one question about one word there, Fred. Their actual motion is to put a pause on 413, and yours was to cancel.
Yeah, I did that because that more closely supported the previous resolution that council passed in 2021, but it's council's resolution.
Well, I just wondered if we're endorsing their resolution and then changing it. I'm wondering if we're endorsing their resolution, if we shouldn't be staying with their resolution.
Again, it's your resolution, council, absolutely. If you feel better that that becomes pause.
I like yours better, but I think that's not appropriate.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I like consistency, right? So, I mean, if we did, and it wasn't, if we did already say that you should nix it, then we should keep it the same, but, sorry, to cancel it. Is an expression.
So what is the wish of council?
So I don't know, what is-
Cancel or
yeah.
pause?
Well, the resolution was moved by Councillor Davy, so I think she starts with,
Oh, okay, so let's see whether it'll pass then, right?
in which form?
The one that you got, the one that you wrote, is to be consistent with what we as a council said before. Because mostly it's not necessary, I mean, the highway's gonna go ahead. It's mostly the issue of that, bringing the attention to the forefront, that this is a whole lot of money, and we're needing money someplace else now, and you're not gonna, any highway that's gonna be built is a 20-year project, right? So, right, that's,
Let's say cancel.
yeah.
Councillor Manctillo, do you continue to second the motion as it was presented with the word council?
I guess so.
Just checking.
I just have a question, because I did not hear you say and commit that money to building 1.5 million homes. Like, that's part of their motion, but we don't repeat that, and it doesn't matter?
In the motion that I recommended to council, I did not include that, right? I just put the part about allocating the funds. But again,
I like your
just giving a
wording.
starting point for
Okay.
council.
Yeah, I'd leave it as is. I mean, if Premier Ford takes exception, he can find the discrepancies between the two positions.
Well, it's just that, when we're calling them on their own, they want to build 1.5 million homes, and here you go, here's your opportunity, stop the highway and
Yeah.
do it. I don't know.
Okay, I'm going to call the question. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Reports of members of council and staff projects, and I'm inclined, given the hour, to suggest that we maybe defer that unless there is something incredibly urgent that we need to raise. Fred?
I just want to let council know that I've made arrangement for the flag raising for Sikh Heritage Month, and that is scheduled for April 15th at 10 a.m. That is not during a council meeting, but I will send that to council in an email as well. So if whichever members of council are available, there will be a ceremony similar to previous years.
And I can't be there, just for the record.
Could I ask the clerk for the first meeting in April, could you order in a full dinner for,
To keep everybody sugar levels up and stuff.
Yes.
You're gonna have to send us here to California, you know.
Any other items for staff or council that absolutely must be raised tonight?
Just quickly, there is a Committee of Adjustment meeting on Thursday, this March 28th, and it will deal with a specific property on Highway 10, but it will also, as one of the items, review the amended bylaw to the cash in lieu of parkland bylaw. The letter from Bruce Trail, dated March 21st, is on there as an item, but it will probably be deferred, as Mayor Creelman noted earlier in this session.
Yes, I did. I predicted that it would be.
Excuse me, Your Worship, I just, backtracking a little bit, we haven't actually approved Schedule A yet.
Ah, yes, I have it right here, that we accept Schedule A to this agenda. Mover, Elaine, seconded by Ralph. Any opposed? None? Anything else? Final call.
For what?
So let's get our time with Dave.
Any final call for comments that need to be made before the next meeting?
Anything urgent?
Big, one little
Okay.
thing that finally, the 236 First Street, which is very important to our Starview Starview neighborhood. They are finally, it's getting ready, people are gonna be moving in, so there's gonna be a ribbon cutting, and April is a very busy month for some social activities when we're all away, so I'm hoping that somebody from council will be able to go. It's Friday, April the 12th, in the afternoon, short, just from 3 to 4:30 p.m. But Sylvia Jones is gonna be there, so it'd be really nice if somebody from Mono Council was there too. Okay, thank you.
You and I are the only ones here, so we'll go.
Friday?
Do we take
Okay,
our own
thank you.
scissors?
And there's cupcakes.
What time, April 12th, what time?
3 o'clock.
Okay.
So no notices of motion, no in-camera items. I have a motion that we introduce and give the necessary readings to a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council of the town of Mono in session 6, 2024, held on the 26th of March, 2024, that it be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed and engrossed in the bylaw book. Do I? Councillor Davey moves, seconded by Deputy Mayor Nix. No opposition. And the final motion is that we adjourn this meeting at 9:39 p.m. I have a mover for that, Councillor Davey and Councillor Magdalo. No opposition. The meeting is adjourned, and we should get a time with Dave.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.